I want to talk about understanding conflicts. How do we understand conflicts? This is the first session. In subsequent sessions, we will have the analysis of types of conflict, various stages of conflicts, the tools that can help us understand the conflict. We'll also be talking about what is peace building, what is what does equality mean, what does justice mean, the different meanings of justice, and there is a lot to come in the subsequent sessions. Today we are going to talk about understanding conflicts. Have I shared the screen? Just a minute, I must share the screen. I'm sorry, I forgot to share the screen. Is the screen visible now?
No, yeah.
It is visible now. Is it?
Yes.
It is visible, isn't it?
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah, okay. So we will be talking about understanding conflicts today, and our perspectives in life are different, and it depends on our social, economic background, regional background, and things like that. Different people, depending on their social background, make different sense of the same things. For example, caste it adds to a perspective in life. Not that all these perspectives are ironclad and written in stone, but they largely inform our perspective. What do we want from our life? How do we see things in life? How do we interpret things in surroundings? What are the signals that we get from the surrounding community? For example, on any issue, Dalits may have one perspective and upper caste may have another.
Kiran, we can go ahead with that. Did you have a discussion?
Except me.
You might have indicated.
Yes, sir.
Kindly mute everyone except me.
Okay. That would be mostly this is covered.
Everyone is muted.
That is what is covered.
Yeah. Okay. So our perspectives, say caste, for example, the way Dalits interpret certain issues and is different from the way upper caste interpret certain issues and events. Communities, for example, also have their own specific perspective, and they interpret from their own community perspective that they have imbibed from the community they are born into and the community they belong to. Likewise, region. Let me give some examples. There is vast difference between how it's raining now, how a slum dweller in urban area would look at rains, and how a peasant would look at rains. The perspectives are different. How would they look at nature? For a city dweller, for an urban dweller, nature is more, particularly for middle class and upper class elite. It's more something to be consumed as a consumer once in a year during holiday. Just pay for it, go somewhere in Himalaya or a beautiful valley, enjoy all that valley nature, maybe have drinks, stay in a nice hotel. Even in that hotel which is cut off from nature, have all those 5-star facilities, pay for it, drink, etc., and come back and just a minute, and come back and that's it. Get into your daily life. Nature for a rural person from rural background may be completely different, make different sense. The grass talks to the person from rural background, or for a Adivasi, for example, in a forest, every tree and every leaf talks to that Adivasi, and they make sense of every living thing around them. It's they have more of an organic link with that nature rather than just attitude of consuming it or enjoying it once in a year or twice in a year when you go out for a holiday and then come back and get into your punishing routine, very busy schedule, your motor cars and travels and busy life and things like that. So we have different perspectives depending on where do we belong to. Uh, how we are earning our sources of livelihood also may differ. Again, I was giving example of a urban slum dweller. Uh, Heavy rains disrupt that urban slum dweller's life. Water logging, uh, water enters into their home, destroys the meager belongings that they have, and you know, all muck that rains might create. So an urban slum dweller or even a middle class may wish, may want to enjoy rain for some time, but may wish that it should not rain very heavily, etc., etc. But a peasant would wait for rains after sowing his seeds. So our perspectives towards what we want and how we look at things differ vastly. We have different attitudes. Our attitudes also depend on the class that we belong to. The attitude of an industrialist, of profit making out of everything, out of every situation, being able to take risk. Uh, Shayuz is here, and he told me one story. Professor Shayuz Zaman is here amongst the participants, and he told me one story from Assam, and I would like to relate that story uh, as an example of how our perspectives differ based on rural, urban, the class we belong to. The story goes like this, that there was an Assamese boatman fishing in river Brahmaputra. And he's putting his traditional Assam cap on his face. He has put an angle in the river and is sleeping. Meanwhile, in another boat, an urban middle class or an urban industrialist comes there and says, young man, look at your angle. Maybe you will catch more fish if you are more attentive to your fishing. So that person asks, then what will happen after I catch more fish? He says, you can sell in the market and maybe you can get a bigger net instead of an angle. Then what? With that net, you will be able to catch even more fish. Then what? What will happen after that? Oh, you can sell all that fish and you can have a bigger boat and a motor boat with engine that can go deep fishing and catch even more fish. Then what? Oh, you can sell all that and make a bungalow and relax. So this friend of ours who believes in the lahe lahe culture, hoga lahe lahe, dheere dheere sab hoga. Everything will happen in its good time. I need not labor much. So this Assamese who's more attuned to this lahe lahe culture says to that urban fellow, what am I doing now? You're asking me to take all this trouble, buy a bungalow, and then relax. What do you think I'm doing right now? I'm relaxing. So why should I undertake all this trouble? But this urban industrialist or urban entrepreneur will never be able to understand the fun of this life of relaxing. And perhaps that fishing person, Assam, uh, believing in following Lahe Lahe culture, will never be able to understand the fun in risk taking and entrepreneurship and luxurious living. Like that, we can give examples from all this caste price perspective, etc., etc. Our perspectives also depends on culture. Culture specific. Let me give you one more example here. I was working in a tribal area in Gujarat for 4 years. I was staying with them in the forests uh, for months together, or for 4 years, hardly coming out of that forest. When I first went, what do I see? Women bathing with just covering their loin part and completely naked on without any upper garment. To me, an urban person, it was a horrifying thing. It was initially, it was something to be ashamed of, shameful. But men on the other side of the bank were very cool. They were also bathing. They were also doing whatever chores they wanted to do, and paying little attention to the women bathing on the other side. It was something very routine and very natural. So look at the two different perspectives. How the shame comes in. It's how shame is culture specific, and we have different attitudes. Likewise, one day one Adivasi told me that look, these forests for us are a fixed deposit that you urban people have. You urban people have your banks and fixed deposit in your banks. And your father, when he's breathing his last, calls his son and says, "For your safety and security, I have deposited some money into the bank so that it takes care of your needs when you are in dire needs. Kindly secure that fixed deposit. Increase it if you can, multiply it if you can, investment wise. Stay on the interest of that fixed deposit whenever you need. Don't try to eat into that fixed deposit." Likewise, this forest is our fixed deposit, which our ancestors have left for our generation. So what we have to do, we get all our needs from this forest. We get our food, we get our shelter, everything to make our homes. We get everything that we want. We get our medicines. We get everything that we want from our forest. This forest is our fixed deposit that you have, that urban fellows have in the bank. We have to enrich this forest, strengthen it, make it more diverse, thicken it, by conserve this forest and stay on its usufruct, like you stay on interest of your investment. I said, wow, very good. Good. So the cultures are different, and our perspectives also depend on the cultures that we have. Gender perspectives also depend on the gender that we come from. Our typical attitudes that men have are different from the typical attitudes that women have towards life, what they want from life. Uh, to give an example from my life, normally in a face-to-face workshop, it's interactive. We ask questions and people come with examples, and but it is not possible. So I'm giving all the examples from my life. We went hunting for a home because we wanted to get relocated for 2 years temporarily. So we were looking for rental accommodations. Sandhya, my wife, uh, what do you think? What questions I was asking to the person whom we are interviewing for renting the rental accommodation, and what questions was Sandhya asking to that as soon as we entered that rental home to check it out, whether we want it or not, Sanjay would straight enter into the kitchen and see how airy the kitchen is. And I would be concerned more with how much it will cost my pocket. So these were, Sanjay is laughing. She's also listening and she's laughing. So you see the different perspectives that we had towards based on gender. Okay, uh, but these perspectives are not cast in stone. Our unique history sometimes or accidents happen, unique events happen in our life. Uh, we get motivated. We might meet some great person, and we overcome these perspectives that we imbibe on the basis of our caste, gender, culture, community, region we come from, etc., etc. So our perspectives are different. That is something to be noted. Our perspectives in life differ from each other, but that's no fault of that person with whose perspective we are differing. It's the contribution to that perspective, which is different from ours, which may be different from ours, is because of the region they come from, the culture they are born in, the community in which they are born in, the caste that they are born in. So hold no malice for this different cultures. Now, what is a conflict? People want different things from same situation. When our goals clash, when goals of two or more people are incompatible, when they want different things from the same situation, there is a conflict. For example, a family, if salary is fixed or the earnings of the family are fixed, but the members of the family may want different use of that money. If you have seen this picture, Ghar Ghar Ki Kahani, Balwant Sani, it's a very old film. Why I'm talking to young people, but I'm an old person and I remember only those examples, where children want different things from their parents, from the father, and father is unable to reconcile his salary to fulfill the needs of what children want in that film, and what his wife wants and what he wants. So what he does is he asks his children, okay, next month you run the house. You spend it the way you want. That's the film about. And that children learn new things using the income that father has brought to the family. And they realize that how impossible it is to reconcile all these different needs of the family. So people want different things from same situation. I just gave example of a salary. Uh, a piece of land, people may want different use. Natural resources, people, different groups of people may want different things from those natural resources. Take water, for example. Industrialists may want to use that water for industrial purpose, for commercial purpose, by paying higher money. Peasant may want, and therefore construct large dams, have more electricity, uh, dam the rivers. So the peasants may want more from that water for agricultural use. So how that fixed amount of water, different groups of people, what do they want from scarce resource of water is again different. So people have incompatible goals, and this is what gives rise to conflict. So what is a conflict? Conflict is a relationship between two or more parties, individuals or groups, who have or think they have incompatible goals. Conflict happens when people pursue goals that are incompatible. Uh, and these conflicts are all around us. The conflicts are in our family, within our family, Conflicts are in the caste of the community we may belong to. Conflict is in the neighborhood around us. Conflict is in the nation, in the country, different groups, how how you should be taxed, what should be taxed, how taxpayers' money should be used. Or recently we had one conflict, and I'll come to that example again and again without drawing any conclusions, but just giving it as an example because it is very fresh. For example, what a piece of land should, in Ayodhya, how it should be used. Should there be a mosque, or should there be a temple? There was a conflict over that. I'm not talking about which side was right or which side was wrong, but there are conflicts all around us. What language should be used? What holidays? These are the conflicts that we have at national level that governments have to deliberate upon. And things like industrial policy, agricultural policy, etc., etc. Government has to decide a whole lot of things, and so therefore there is conflict all around us, because all around us different people have incompatible goals, as we saw uh, in uh, in the previous slide. Now, conflict suggests a confrontation between one or more parties seeking incompatible or competitive means or ends. When they want different things and they're competing with each other, those competitions may be good competitions, and those competitions may be unhealthy competitions, or by unfair means. Now, what are fair means and what are unfair means? Also, there's conflict about that. What needs to be called fair, what needs to be called unfair. One such conflict was partly resolved, I would say partly, not entirely, the Ayodhya conflict, for example, through mediation of judiciary, the Supreme Court. So that is one way of resolving that conflict. It was not healthily resolved all throughout. There was violence involved, a lot of violence we saw along the path, animosity, hatred, intense polarization. But finally, it has been partly resolved through mediation of judiciary in the country. Uh, we hope that path was followed from day one. All throughout, it would have been peaceful. Now, Max Weber concluded that a social relationship in conflict when one party carries out its will against another. And we see this all the time. A particular group of people rule us, or are in a dominant position to rule over others, or to carry out their will over others. We see this in gender. Men dominate and are largely able to carry out their will against women within the family, within the society, within the country. Although women also now mobilize, question, resist, oppose, and try to correct this dominance of men. They succeed to some extent, but a large ground has to be covered. Temple entry. So a particular section of a society is able to dominate over other sections, and this happens all the time. Caste-wise, gender-wise, class-wise, region-wise, we see dominance of one region. For example, in Maharashtra, Western Maharashtra dominates over the other regions of Maharashtra. The other regions of Maharashtra are backward. In Gujarat, central Gujarat dominates over other regions. Likewise, we saw this conflict when one region dominates over other. A later state, Telangana, being created. Had Andhra Pradesh, coastal Andhra, not dominated over other regions of Andhra Pradesh, Rayalaseema and Telangana, perhaps that demand for Telangana would not have emerged. So this is what Max Weber says, and we see these conflicts all around us. So yeah, I'm trying to see. Yes, we have plenty of time, and I can take some more time. Now, what is a conflict? A conflict is different from dispute. One can say that every dispute, every conflict is a dispute, but every dispute is not a conflict. When there is a minor disagreement about facts, but largely agreement about principles or the premises or the framework in which we should deal with each other, there's no there's no conflict over the premises, the framework. There's only minor conflict over facts. For example, you traveled in an auto. The auto driver says, "Saab, 50 rupiya ho gaya," and the customer says, "No, no, no, no." The passenger says, "नहीं भाई, 50 रुपया कैसे हो गया? रोज I travel daily and it costs only 40 rupees. You are overcharging me." So this is minor dispute over facts. It can come in the category of dispute. The conflict is not how rickshaw should be used, whether you use the rickshaw or not, whether you are entitled to pay to that rickshaw fellow or not. There's no dispute about that. So therefore, it is not a conflict, but it is a dispute. Dispute is a situation in which issues are negotiable, compromise is possible, and changing institutions or structures is not obligatory. I mean, you don't have to carry out a fundamental change in the structures or institutions or set new obligations or new obligatory relations. When that is so, then we call it a dispute rather than conflict. So conflict is more intense dispute where the premises are challenged, or there's conflict over the goals, the fundamental goals. And mostly conflicts stem from human needs that cannot be compromised. For example, removal of poverty. If there is conflict over use of water resources, then the cooking needs or household needs and drinking water needs are fundamental. They are human needs and cannot be compromised. The second priority will go towards agriculture. It's again human need. Without that, there is no food, there is no crop without agriculture. And the last priority will be to industrial use of water. In fact, we see things happening the other way. By constructing large dams over rivers, the industrial use of water is given priority. Or the commercial interests for generation of electricity, hydropower, etc., etc. Water is used for all these for large dams. We see large-scale displacement of Adivasis, Dalits, peasant communities, etc., etc. So those are real conflicts. When there's conflict over human needs, then they are rather serious conflicts, and we can't say that is a dispute. So one way of distinguishing dispute from this is. So now there can also be conflict over ideas, and I think that is a desirable conflict. When there is all conflicts are not undesirable. Human society has made so much of progress because of desirable conflicts. What is a desirable conflict? Or conflict of idea is a desirable conflict. All right. What is a conflict of ideas? When from same set of facts, two people studying those facts draw different conclusions, then we say this is conflict over ideas. For example, the conflict between Newtonian science and Einsteinian science. When Einstein disputed some of the premises of Newtonian science, he took the science ahead. He took knowledge forward. So each new generation questions the ideas of previous generation, the knowledge of previous generation. And those disputes, those conflicts, those conflict of ideas take human societies forward. So conflict of ideas is when two or more parties reach different conclusions from same phenomena of facts. For example, again, I'm giving example from Ram Mandir and Babri Masjid conflict. Uh, Two sets of uh, historians and archaeologists from the same facts, you could find them drawing different conclusions. Oh, there was a remnants of a temple here from archaeological diggings. And one set of archaeologists said, no, what we find from this digging from below the ground does not prove that there was a temple here, or does not prove that a temple was demolished, or that it was two sets of archaeologists there, and they both may intensely dispute, but they should not have political motivation. If they have political motivation, then it is no more conflict of ideas. It is conflict of politics. But two people who are dedicated archaeologists, if they draw two different conclusions from same set of facts, history, for example, any historical fact, any scientific experiment, corona. Some people say, I have found a medicine for corona. Others say, no, not yet. Your medicine is not good enough. Your experiments were not good enough. And it does not prove conclusively that what you have discovered is a medicine for corona. So two people drawing different conclusions from same facts is called conflict of ideas. Now conflicts can be peaceful conflicts or violent conflicts. Very simple. When violence is used to sustain a conflict, it is called violent conflict. And where violence is not necessary to sustain a conflict, they are called peaceful conflicts. Many conflicts take place, and players, parties to those conflicts play out peacefully with each other. So those are called peaceful conflicts. I already gave example of what is a desirable and a creative conflict, and what is undesirable conflict. So different perceptions lead to multifaceted understanding of truth and facts of life, social realities, science, laws of nature, and other phenomena. Attempts to understand and reconcile these differing perceptions leads to enriched understanding of reality, laws of nature, and social sciences in the form of theories. So what academicians do are desirable conflict of ideas actually are desirable conflict. This leads to growth of knowledge and development, promoting necessary change. I would say that human society has progressed from cave age and stone age to the present only and only because of these desirable and creative conflicts. Conflicts in the field of arts. You know, when you experiment with performing arts, theater, cameras, cinematography, paintings, music, when you there are differences in the styles, etc., etc. When you dispute about this, actually you promote that art, you take that art forward. So These are desirable and creative conflicts. There can be undesirable conflicts, but which are peaceful. Uh, for example, uh, take disagreements between siblings, fighting over toys, or say TV program, which TV program to see. This is an undesirable conflict. Sometimes it can really, create bad taste, ill feelings towards each other. Uh, this undesirable conflict, but it is peaceful. You don't box each other. You don't injure each other. Someone gives in. It is a conflict between husband and wife, which is peaceful. Uh, you know, whose will prevail today? It may be an undesirable conflict, but it is peaceful, provided it does not take the shape of domestic violence, beating up either spouse, mostly husband beating up wife. So if there is no violence involved, uh, it's an undesirable but peaceful conflict. So, or say within a community, there's a panchayat, and elections in panchayat are taking place. Uh, Unfair means are used in that election. It is a peaceful conflict. No violence is there, but undesirable because unfair means are being used. Say within a community there is an institution uh, to sustain that community culture. Okay. Again, unfair means are used. One group is trying to uh, boot out another group, kick out another group, and it is undesirable. Everybody, they can't agree. They can't resolve that conflict in a fair manner using fair means. They're using unfair means, and therefore it's an undesirable conflict, but peaceful, because they are not using violence against each other. Okay. So, but when we talk about violence, we should understand violence in its larger perspective. What is violence? Uh, Again, in a face-to-face workshop, I always ask, and the answer are varied. Uh, People normally refer to physical injury as violence. But physical injury alone is not violence. We'll see again in subsequent sessions of peace and conflict resolution deeper into what violence is, what kind of, we'll analyze violence more deeply. But let me try to define this violence, or lead to different aspect of this violence, which is not just physical. Violence consists of actions, words, attitudes, structures, or systems that cause physical, psychological, social, or environmental damage, and or prevent people from reaching their full human potential. Let me give some examples here. Again, in a face-to-face workshop, examples come from the house. Many examples come and we analyze those examples. It's not possible over a Zoom meeting, but let me take some examples here. You make fun of women often. They are abla, they are weaker sex, they are fairer sex. Recently we had Raksha Bandhan, so women are weaker, so brothers must protect them. This is an attitude that men have, all right? Now it looks peaceful attitude. I would say it is violent. These kind of attitudes are violent because it prevents women from developing themselves to their full human potential. For example, uh, they start internalizing that we are weaker section. and then they don't resist violence when they face one during eve teasing or on streets and things like that. They don't develop to their full human potential. When you say that women, when you have that attitude that women should only cook in the house, they're they're no good for anything else. When you have those attitudes, you prevent women from being ambitious to become a collector, a pilot, an engine driver, a wrestler, and things like that. You know? So they don't even have those ambitions. Times are changing, but for centuries or for millenniums, we prevented women from even thinking of these kind of jobs. Just because you have that attitude that women are a weaker sex and they should take care of the family and the children and do cooking, church, children, and family and kids. They are meant only for this. If you have that attitude, then that's a violent attitude, sounding peaceful. All right. This is one example I give. Likewise, we have very violent attitude. Sardarji, violent attitude about Dalits. We have violent attitude about, say, minorities in every country. Say about blacks in America, African Americans in America, or wherever. We have violent attitude towards minorities. One can name them. That they are loyal. In India, if we take about Muslims, that they are loyal to Pakistan, that they are terrorists, and all terrorists are Muslims, and those kind of attitudes that you have are violent attitudes. Then you prevent them from developing, you start discriminating against them in your real life. So whenever you prevent any section of society or any human being from reaching his or her full human potential, either through either through structures, systems, policies, laws, or attitudes, and cause psychological damage, social damage, environmental damage through the structures that we have. All this is violence. So violence is not just physical injury. It's more than physical injury. Let me read the definition once again, because we must internalize this. Violence consists of actions, words, attitudes, structures, or systems that cause. These attitudes, structures, systems should be such that they cause physical, psychological, social, or environmental damage and prevent somebody from reaching the full human potential. Okay. Say a caste structure is a violent structure because you prevent those on the lower rungs of the caste to reach their full human potential. Patriarchy is a violent structure. I would say, some of you may disagree with me, but I would say neoliberalism, the ideology of neoliberalism is a violent structure. Market structures are violent structures because they favor only a particular section of the society and they exclude another particular section of the society. Peasants don't get their fair dealings or fair price for their produce in the market. Market can discriminate, and markets are structured in such a way that a few people benefit from it and most people are excluded from it. So we are talking about those structures, systems that prevent human beings from reaching their full human potential. And as I had said earlier, when violence is employed to sustain a conflict, we have violent conflicts. And finally, think of these questions. Can you think, I mean, let's think about desirable conflict which has contributed to our life, which changed our life. You know? So can you think of a situation from your own experience where a conflict has made any positive contribution? How did that conflict help to change the situation? Do you know, do you now agree that conflict can help to stimulate necessary change? I'll rest here. We can have question and answer session. You can, in all these slides, if you want to give examples from your life to enrich the discussion that we had, we would welcome. If you differ in what has been said in this, we welcome. It will be a desirable conflict and a peaceful conflict. Conflicts are good. So your differing with me will be good. Don't worry, don't bother about it. And as Bertrand Russell once said, I'm welcoming more discussion. Bertrand Russell once said, and I often quote this, all people in this world are ignorant, including me. I'm also ignorant. Our fields of ignorance differ. So we all are ignorant. I'm also ignorant. Our fields of ignorance differ. So when we debate, when you try to correct it by examples from your life, which may point out to difference, we welcome it. I think together we can evolve. These are preliminary remarks that I wanted to make about conflicts. In subsequent sessions that we have, we will look at types of conflict, tools, how to analyze conflict, different stages of conflict, what is peace, what are the different perspectives towards peace. Can you resolve the conflict only in non-violent way? Is violence necessary to resolve some of the conflicts? There are debates about this, and we will visit all these debates. See from international examples, etc. What are root causes of conflict? What are the 4 root causes of conflict? We will look into all this in the subsequent slides. It is open. The session is now open for you to add things, to differ, or seek clarifications if you want to. Please, you can either, if you want to speak, be very brief so that more people can speak. Do not take more than 1 minute. Raise your hand and Suraj will unmute you, or you can type out your questions in the chat box and somebody can read it. But you are allowed to speak, but please not more than 1 minute. Let's make this a very healthy discussion. Thank you very much for patiently listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. If I'm already seeing a couple of questions on the chat section.
Can I stop sharing the screen so that everybody can see the speaker and we can...
I think, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But if you want to share the screen, we'll share the screen again. If you want to go back and refer to some slide, we will go back to those slides again. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't see any hands been raised. So I will start by asking questions from the chat section.
I saw one hand being raised. Sabiha More had raised one hand long ago. Professor Saral Jigran is raising her hand, perhaps, I think.
Mushtaq Sikandar has raised his hand.
Okay, just a minute. Let
Hello.
me go one by
Hello.
one.
So
Hello.
we can read from the chat box also.
Yeah, Ms. More.
Irfan bhai, good evening. It was a very nice program that we heard, and it is my fortune to see you, listen to you, and see you both again on conflict.
Thank you.
My problem is that howsoever we talk on conflict, in India, it doesn't seem to be rested, you know. Some day there is one conflict, the other day there is other conflict, the other day there is other. Why is this so much of helplessness among people in today's time? Why is it that people are so like desperate that they don't sit across, they don't want to resolve, they just want to fight, they want to just have some conflict, making others' life also very difficult? Why is it like that?
Yeah, let me take a couple of more questions and could respond together.
Thank you, Irfan bhai.
This is to enable more people to participate in the discussion.
Yeah, Mushtaq, go ahead.
Hello, just a comment. As you stated about that in certain cases, the conflict basically empowers. So I have just one example to share. Like in Kashmir, we witness often on the violence. So in most cases, when youth are picked up, we witness that their mothers, their sisters, they fall off with their cases. So in a certain sense, that helps them overcome the patriarchy.
Mushtaq, give me 1 second. I want to introduce you to everybody. Mushtaq is from Kashmir, and he has been for long advocating that the Kashmir conflict should be resolved in whatever way through non-violence. Am I right, Mushtaq?
Yes, yes, you are right. So just, I don't have a question. It's just a comment, observation.
Yes,
like the conflict is empowering, particularly the women, as we witness that whenever youth are picked up, maybe by the army or by the police, and then the follow-up of the cases, their cases in the judiciary, or if they are shifted to outside jails, it's done by women who are mostly their mothers or sisters. In most cases, they are illiterate. But then due to this situation, they become so much empowered that they are able to travel, they are able to follow up with the cases, they are able to meet them. So in a certain sense, that has a certain kind of a positive impact on these women. And here we witness that also one lady, Parveena Ahangar, she formed this association of parents of disappeared persons. So in that sense, conflict has a certain kind of empowering spirit also, and it also helps overcome this patriarchal culture that we witness and produces leadership. So that was basically my comment.
okay.
Okay, Shirin is there and Swat piece is there. I will, yeah, Shirin ma'am. Hello, Shirin.
May I suggest that all those who can, please switch on your video so that we don't feel we are talking to a monitor, but to human beings. We are not face to face. At least when you are speaking, at least at that time, switch on your video. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, good evening, sir. It was a nice presentation. It was really informative. So I'm from Odisha. We are also working on peace. I just wanted to know, because I have the inquisitiveness to know more about this conflict, to identify. There are two terminologies, or the two actions, or the incidents I can remember. So could you kindly categorize that conflict? So the first one will be, what is the conflict we can think of by defaming the image of a person or an institution? So that one. And the second one will be, I have also in the chat box, regarding the movement to ensure the rights and entitlements of ours. So these two types of conflict.
I didn't follow. Can you give an example for me to understand?
Which one? The first one, the first or the second one?
Both.
Okay, just to defame someone, now you see, I take the example of the Narendra Modi. So someone says him Chokidar Chore. The deformation is the action again. And how do we take this as a conflict? And the second would be the movement to have or movement to ensure the rights and entitlements. The example of the Dalit rights. So I can think of a Dalit Christian right. The Dalit of the Indian religions, where the Indian religions get the reservation quota. However, the Christians, they don't get. The Indian religion, Dalit of the Indian religions get. However, the Christians or the Muslims, they don't get. For that, these two sections of the people, they take the movement, and they, because of their rights and entitlements. Do we consider as a conflict? And if it is a conflict, then which category it can go?
Okay.
Thank you. Over to you.
I think Professor Saral Jingran wants to. You have to unmute yourself.
Let me.
You have to unmute yourself, Professor. Please.
Yeah, I have.
Yes. Now, conflicts are good only when they are motivated with some positive goal, as of Raja Ram Mohan Rao at that time, or other social reformers. They get into conflict with the traditional or orthodox people, maybe with others also. But they are very undesirable. They have been taught that conflicts are always good, they bring out positive things. But they are undesirable when they are inspired by the ego or self-importance of some person or some group. Or when the parties of any conflict see each other as other, within inverted commas. The feeling of otherness, when it comes there, the conflict becomes personal and can never bring out any. Thank you. Yeah, I was very amused, Irfan, by your interpretation of Raksha Bandhan. It never occurred to me like that. It was a sort of for girls who use Raksha Bandhan uh, to talk, to keep, revive the contact between brothers and sisters. It is an expression of mutual love. But this explanation is only half the truth. Sorry. Thank you. Otherwise, I'm always ready to accept it. Any form of conflict is wrong. Whether violent or even non-violent conflict, if the ego comes there, if the importance of the community comes there, it creates poison. In the atmosphere, finally it would turn into violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Sir, there are a couple of questions on the chat box. Should I ask that or?
Yeah, please ask, please ask.
Yeah. So there's one question from Manish Sinha. He asks, social media bullying is also a new type of violence. What do you think?
Yeah.
The other question is from Zahir Hussain. His question is, how far do you think that India has not been able to structure its institutions that are able to deal with or manage the conflicts in a very amicable way? Is it just the absence of conflict resolving institutions, or is it that the men who man these institutions are imperfect? Shirin, you can go ahead and you can also ask the question. I have already unmuted you. Okay, I can't see her right now. I think you can answer the question.
I'll answer these questions and then you can read the leftover thing. Huh?
Yeah.
All right. To the first question, when will conflicts end? I don't know. and I don't even desire that conflict should end. I said that there are desirable conflicts and they should continue. I don't know if conflicts would ever end in our life. They will go on. We have to learn how to deal with them. Actually, when we come to conflict resolution theories and methods, in that section we will see that how we can transform conflicts, the negative energy of conflicts into a positive energy to bring about a change in our lives. And I don't think we would have progressed from Stone Age to where we are here now without conflicts. There were conflicts, and what we should not have is violent conflicts. As I said, there are desirable conflicts, conflicts of ideas, which should always be there. I think human societies will progress because of those conflicts of ideas. Our knowledge increases, etc., etc. But then the undesirable conflicts also all around. I don't know whether that perfect Ram Rajya or Hukumat-e Ilahiya or God's kingdom will ever come. At least I'm unable to see that coming in near future. I hope it comes when there will be no conflicts, where everybody will be in perfect equilibrium. But even if we'll have to wait for quite long for that, and we'll have to make a lot of efforts to reach there. Not just wait, we'll have to make lots of efforts to reach there. So for the present, let's not only dream about such a situation where there will be no conflicts. Let us think how to come up with methods that will take us there, where undesirable conflicts are not there and desirable conflicts are still there. And this universe is so vast, and we need to know so much of knowledge. And all that knowledge will come only when there's a continuous desirable conflicts continue in our life, So anyway, is defaming Modi a conflict? Yes, it is a conflict. Is why Dalits having reservation or Dalit Christians having access to reservation, is that a conflict? Yes, it is a conflict. My plain answer is that yes, it is a conflict. You raised that question because there is a conflict there. Some people think that there should be no reservations at all. There should be only open merits to access to public employment. And there are others who think that it is an unfair method. The method to judge merits is insufficient or imperfect to judge merits. You can't judge merits only by, and so therefore reservations are necessary. There are historical wrongs that need to be corrected. Some people have that perspective. Didn't I say that our perspectives are different based on our caste? So a Dalit would think that there are historical wrongs which prevented us from accessing and reaching our full human potential. And it's only a level playing field which will be fair so that we can access public employment. Otherwise, there is no fair competition. And who determines how to test merits? All right, these are all deeper questions. And there is dispute about that. And therefore, it's a dispute. Therefore, it's a conflict. Whether it's a conflict or not, it is a conflict. Then the second aspect of this conflict is, should Dalit Christians also have access to reservation? The present law says Christian Dalits are not categorized as scheduled castes. And if they are not categorized as scheduled caste according to the present laws and policies, they cannot access reservation. So if you are a Christian, you, according to the law, you cannot be a scheduled caste, and therefore you can't have reservation. You may hide your religion. What people do is, they may hide their faith, they may hide their religion and declare themselves to be a scheduled caste or get themselves registered as scheduled caste, and when they convert to Christianity, they may not declare and therefore continue in their jobs as a reservation, etc. But there is a conflict over all this. There is a conflict whether some Dalits and Christians and Muslims say that reservations should not be a reservation for Dalits should not be based on religion. Ranganath Mishra Commission, appointed by Government of India, gives this recommendation that scheduled castes should not be determined on basis of religion. It should be on basis of profession and social background. All right. All these disputes are, so therefore there are conflicts. How to resolve them? We'll come to that in our subsequent. My answer to your question, is it a conflict? Yes, it is a conflict. Defaming Narendra Modi as Chaukidar Chor hai, calling these kind of names, it is undesirable conflict, but peaceful conflict, I would say. All right, if you don't do anything more except naming somebody, again there will be dispute. No, Irfan bhai, you are wrong. People have a right to say Chaukidar Chor hai. And somebody will say, no, you are hurting my feelings by saying Chaukidar Chor hai, that Narendra Modi is Chaukidar Chor hai. This itself is showing there is a conflict. There is an undesirable conflict. But are we doing anything? Are we harming anybody from reaching, from the Chaukidar reaching his full human potential? The Chaukidar has already reached his full human potential wherever he wants. So you are not harming anyone. It's a, I mean, whether, it's an undesirable but peaceful conflict. That's what I'm saying. It's a peaceful conflict. If you ask my opinion, should anybody call Chaukidar Chor? I think it's more of politics. And in politics, all this muck is thrown, and those who are in the politics see a lot of muck being thrown at them. Somebody will call Rahul Gandhi Pappu, somebody will call Chaukidar Chor hai, and all those mucks are usual tools in politics, and politicians are more used to it. Ambi, let me answer all these questions, and maybe in the second round you can. So, is it a conflict? Yes, it is a conflict. Is it a desirable conflict? No, it's an undesirable conflict. Is it a peaceful conflict? Yes, it's a peaceful conflict. This is my categorization. I may be wrong. And I readily admit that. Ambi is perhaps disagreeing with me and wanting to say something. Yes, you will have. Just a minute. Some of the questions I didn't understand. I think what Professor Saral Jingran said was more, I take it more as an observation and comments, and a welcome comments, adding to what I said. I take it as that. Constructing another is, of course, constructing your opponent. Framing two parties with incompatible goals. So it is a conflict. This is the usual way in which social reforms also creates, two social groups, those supporting reforms, those opposing reforms. Social reforms, according to me, are desirable, particularly progressive social reforms that takes society towards social equality.
Yeah.
So that is a desirable conflict, according to me, because they take. When we come to types of conflict, I will point out to desirable conflicts which may be even violent. There may be violent conflict, but they may be desirable. But we'll go in that section.
Yeah.
At that time, I'm not going this into at present. Now, this symbol of Raksha Bandhan as the symbol of protection. Some people, and we need to give new meanings to traditions at times. That may be a way of dealing with things. So protect the weak without categorizing women as weaker section. This time we gave a slogan. We, I was involved. I was one of them. And greeting everybody on Raksha Bandhan. I said Raksha Bandhan is a festival of love. Bandhan, which is love. Second, Raksha, but Raksha of not women, not sister alone. Sister may not be weak. My sister may be stronger than me. And she is stronger than me. All right, women are stronger in many ways. We should not categorize all women as weak. But Raksha Bandhan as protection of all those who are weaker sections in the society. And we also said today our constitution is in a vulnerable situation. So we need protection of constitution. So Raksha Bandhan to the constitution as well. That as our duty. We committed ourselves to protection of constitution and constitutional values because we are seeing a lot of violence around us, a lot of social conflicts around us, undesirable social conflicts which should end. Now, yes, social media is a platform through which this conflict is being advanced or propagated, or mobilization for this conflict is taking place. So social media is one tool. Social media is, there's no conflict in social media, but it is used as a tool or as a platform through which you propagate your conflict or you advance your conflict. I would see more social media more as a platform or as a tool to advocate violence, and all kinds of violence is being advocated, and all kinds of fundamentalist forces and terrorist forces are using that tool. Terrorists of all kind, all hue and all color, and people who are violent are using that tool to harm somebody, to injure somebody, to mobilize, polarize the society, to advance attitudes that are violent. I gave example of one violent attitude, but there are many violent attitudes towards the weaker sections of the society around us, towards minorities, towards women, towards Dalits, towards poor, towards migrant workers, etc., etc. One can give many towards people from backward region, towards rural people in general. So there are many violent attitudes that we may be having, and social media helps you consolidate those attitudes that they have, the hateful attitude they have. Hatred is violence. It's a violent attitude. It prevents somebody from developing, it intimidates somebody and prevents somebody from developing to their full human potential. Therefore, it's a violent attitude. So, I think
We are at the end of the hour and there are just two more hands up. So I think we'll have to really wrap this up for the next speaker. So we have Shiraz and we have Shireen. Shireen, if you can hear us, please speak. And then Shiraz.
And Shiraz, Shiraz, Shirin and Christy. I'll try and be short. I'll try and be very brief.
Yeah.
Yes,
Shireen, are you there? Till Shireen can get connected, can I request Shiraz to whatever her question is or her comment?
Yeah,
Shiraz.
what I was trying to figure out when Irfan was talking is there are conflicts that are inherent in a situation. And there are conflicts that are actually created to take advantage of certain situations. And therefore, when Irfan was defining the conflicts, I feel it is very important to try and distinguish between this. I'll just give a simple example that between a worker and a employer and an employee, there is an inherent conflict of interest. And very often we work towards that resolution of that conflict that will always remain, and there will always be contestation, and we have to keep on negotiating. So that is one kind of conflict that are inherently there. There is contestation over scarce resources, which Irfan handled very well. Those kind of things are inherent. But then there are make believe kind of conflicts that are created. And I feel communal conflict is a very good example of it. That actually there is no contestation over anything, but you just try and demonize one group and you create a conflict for other ulterior motives. And therefore those, and I think we need to really, when we are analyzing conflict, we really need to make a distinction between these two kinds of conflict. Then the second point I wanted to make is that there are not conflicts which are naturally violent. So for example, if we take the struggle of the Adivasis in the forest, which Irfan started with, actually his first experience, that yes, there is a contestation over the resources, but not, and this requires resolution. It requires somewhere creating an awareness or creating a consciousness amongst the Adivasis also to try and protect their resources. So that conflict at one level in that sense becomes desirable because you're creating a consciousness of a community that is continuously getting deprived. But does it necessarily have to become a violent conflict? In some areas it is, in some areas it is not. So when we are dealing with conflict and peace and conflict resolution, I think in our analysis of conflict, we really need to consider these dimensions. That's what I wanted to say.
Christy?
I'm finished.
Unmute Christy. Suraj, unmute Christy. Ambrose Christy. Unmute Ambrose Christy.
Yeah.
Yes, Christy, you are unmuted.
Yes, Irfan bhai. This is actually a concern that surfaced in my mind when you were classifying conflicts as desirable and undesirable. I thought that desirable is more a relational term. What came to my mind is what if there is a desirable violent conflict? I was thinking so because in the last couple of years we have been seeing how conflict is so easily inflicted among minorities, and it fulfills the needs of some people. So from that point of view, should we really classify it as desirable and undesirable, or from some other literature I was looking at another way of classification, functional and dysfunctional conflicts, where functional conflicts binds and builds relationship and coalition, whereas dysfunctional is divides and which we can attribute towards violence. Just some thought I thought I would share with you.
Yeah, actually both these I don't want to answer. They are welcome additions. Only about undesirable, desirable,
violent conflict, yeah.
Different conflicts later on. Hidden conflict, which
yes.
Sometimes we bring it into open. So, something that sounds, but in subsequent sessions we'll do that. Only one thing I'll say about desirable conflict is conflicts of ideas are desirable conflict. That is where knowledge increases with when there is conflict of ideas. So that is a desirable conflict that I would give example of. Honest conflict over not politics, not political attitudes, but honest conflict over ideas where two groups are intensely debating and with open mind with each other. What happens is that the knowledge increases. So that's a desirable example of a desirable conflict. I think Ambi also wanted to say something. I'm not answering any of these questions. So yeah, Ambi.
I will unmute her.
I agree with you completely, Irfan, that conflict is necessary, and I like you explained the different dimensions of conflict, and I only would like to add that everywhere around us you see conflict, everywhere, everything, even in nature. In nature itself, you see so much of a conflict. So without conflict, there's no development there. So has to be conflict, has to take place. Then, and also violence happens because one one um, one side wants to um, um, wants to be more powerful. It's about power. So, but if the other side does not agree, then it becomes violent, and you cannot uh, compromise on that. No. So in history, you see, history is full of the examples of conflict in different countries, not only in India. So, and you want the inequalities, the discrimination, the injustice to go. They just won't vanish. It takes some amount of conflict at least to do it. Like, for example, the Constitution of India. There was so much of conflict. After so much of agreement, so much of argument, they had finally they arrived at this Constitution, this great document, which now it is again the opposing views are still again coming to the fore, and it is up to the the defenders of the Constitution to stand by it and protect it. And if you then also there is the Constitution was framed in a way that will resolve violence, while that will avoid violent conflicts. So if we don't stand by this Constitution, it will lead to violent conflicts. Anyway, even now there are bloodbaths everywhere in the country on any pretext. So, but if it will be worse if we lose the Indian Constitution.
Yeah, again, I don't want to answer Ambi over this. You made a point. I welcome it. I would say only one line. That particularly that I want to give a framework with which you will be able to analyze conflicts around you. I don't want to give solutions to you. My solution will be just one view, all right, amongst many. So I'm not giving any DA solution. I don't want to give, and I don't intend to give this. I just want to place a framework which will help you analyze the conflicts around you, which we will be doing in subsequent sessions also. Thank you. Thank you very much.